And I see it's time to get started, so we'll get started. Welcome everybody back to the Mels program. This is Mels 603 Law and Finance. I'm Dale Lamb. I'll be your instructor this semester. Of course, you know Dr. Stedman. He will be coaching you on your evidence artifact work. So we're going to dive right in. If you have not done your enrollment verification activity, you need to go ahead and get that done now. That way they won't drop you or withdraw you from the course. I hope you've already brought your textbooks, Principal's Guide to School Law. You'll need to keep that one. And Resource Management for School Administrators, that's good as well. All the information about the course is contained in the syllabus, the ins and outs and those kinds of things. But I'm going to start tonight with our weekly schedule, as I will every week when I come online at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. I will start the same way every week. I will hit the share button, and I will share the weekly schedule. And that way we'll catch up every week. All right, tonight, introduction to course, instructor, task training, Blackboard, evidence, artifact. And then we'll talk about master scheduling, supervision schedule, duty roster, and the OMA task and rubrics. So that's where we are this week. Next week, preventive law. There's your reading that you'll need to do. And then there's the discussion board that you will need to do, the activity that you will need to do for next week's class. So each week we'll come to this and we'll work through it. You can see I have the dates highlighted in yellow that we'll be meeting on Zoom. I've already designated the week of March 5th through 8th as our spring break week, and then we will have our Easter break April 2nd through 8th. So you can see how this goes. Everything that you need to do in terms of the class is on this list other than evidence artifact work. Excuse me. I have a separate weekly schedule. Let me do a new share and go to that one. Now, for your evidence artifact work, I have that on a separate schedule. So as you can see on week 1, instructor-led meetings, I'll talk about the OMA, as I said, during our Zoom session tonight. And then on the right is, and all your dates are here. And every time that I'm going to talk about the OMA or the skip or the cap eventually, I have that outlined. I have it highlighted here, and you know what to do. You know how to do peer review. You have your teams already. If you need me to get involved with teams, I will, but otherwise you already have your teams. And I have the dates here that you'll need to be doing those. And so, and over here on the right. So the way I have it scheduled this semester, you will Zoom peer review OMA task 1. You will Zoom peer review task 3 of the OMA. You will Zoom peer review skip task 1. Cap task 1. You have 4 Zoom reviews. You will do a written review of all 9. Again, you have 9 tasks due this semester, just like last semester. The 4 of the OMA, the 4 of the skip, and 1 of the cap. You will have 9 of those. You will do written peer reviews. You will have 4 Zoom reviews. You will not have any other Zooms other than peer reviews this semester. You will not do Zooms for case studies or any other projects. You will only do Zooms for your peer reviews. If you go back and if we go and look at the weekly activities, or if we look at, let me go to new share, back to the desktop. If we look at discussion boards, you're going to see why I don't have you Zooming a lot this semester, other than for your peer review. If you go discussion board and look at those weekly assignments that I have for you, they're going and doing things. Law and Finance is a practical course. It's not theoretical. So what I will have you doing is going and finding somebody in your building and locate a copy of your school crisis emergency plan. Finding and examining a district field trip policy. Observe student due process, a discipline session, report what you found, interview an AP about processing discipline, examine a district policy on cyberbullying, attend an IEP meeting, interview the chair of your intervention team, interview an administrator concerning human resources practices, interview an administrator about employee assistance compensation plans, conduct the facilities walkthrough using the assessment inventory that I will give you. Interview an administrator about fundraising. List the 5 most important steps in school-based budgeting. You'll need to talk to your principal about that one. I will finally have you locate a copy of your school budget and identify the funds that are in that. I do have a hypothetical case for you on chapter 14, but again, you do that one on your own. And then we'll spend the last week on harassment, sexual harassment. That's become very timely in society, but I've always had a week in there for this. So as you can see, I have you going and doing this semester rather than getting in groups and writing things. Law and finance is a practical course. It's an application. What I'm going to try, and the things that I have put for you to do are things that you're going to need to know, because that's what you're going to be doing in your first job as an assistant principal. Assistant principals don't get to be the top person on the totem pole. You'll be the low person on the totem pole. And these are the kinds of things that they will have you doing. You'll be processing discipline. You'll be in charge of field trips. You'll be doing the building walkthroughs twice a month with the custodian to make sure there's no fire hazards. You'll be doing those kinds of things. You'll be in charge of the crisis box, updating the class list. You'll be doing discipline. You'll be doing the things. You'll be doing bus duty. You'll be doing the things that nobody else wants to do. That's be your job when you get to be an AP. Nobody gets the battlefield promotion to be a principal, and nobody gets to be the top AP first time out of the box. You'll have to do all these kinds of things. And the point in me covering all these things with you is I want you to be successful, but I don't want you to lose your job as well. These are the kinds of things, if you get them wrong, you go home. So, unfortunately, when I was in the central office and had to be in charge of some of these things, my wife would say to me when I'd come home after a bad day, she said, well, but where'd that person go? What'd you do with that person? Because we were on the news. Well, they had to go home, honey. Well, that's the only thing that was left for us to do. So as you can see, there's a lot of going and doing, toing and froing this semester in terms of you going and asking people, finding out about how it works in your school. Recently at one of our collaborative partners meeting, the superintendent from Cleveland County Schools said, would you please teach these people to go and ask folks and don't make these critical decisions on law and finance and critical without asking somebody. And I said, well, that's kind of what we do. But it's up to them whether they in practice go and ask these people or not. So as you can see, you're going to have 9 tasks this semester. You're going to have the activities here in your discussion board, and you're going to have your 4 Zoom sessions. Now, I've asked Dr. Stedman not, I'm going to repeat myself, not to send you weekly reminders of things that you have not done. It's time to cut the cord. We nurture you as much as we can in 601, but we would be doing you a disservice if we nurture you in 603. Because I can tell you right now, when I was a high school principal, I was a principal more, but when I was a high school principal, I had 6 assistant principals. I had 3,000 students. Do you think I had time to go behind all of them and remind them of what to do all the time? I had 6 APs and 2 administrative assistants, and an office staff with a personal secretary, a receptionist, a general secretary for the APs over in their bullpen. I had an office staff of about 15. Do you think I had time to go behind people and ask them, did you do that? Or, oh, honey, please turn that in. You miss a couple assignment deadlines, it's new ox time. The Bible says if your ox is in the ditch on Sunday and it's an emergency, you can get him out. But if the ox is in the ditch every Sunday, that's not an emergency. That's time for a new ox. And so after about twice, when you don't hit your deadline as an AP, then I don't need you anymore. So we've got to get you coached up a little bit here in terms of making sure that you know what your responsibilities are. We're telling you up front, hit your deadlines and monitor yourself. Your mama can't come to work with you. If she does, we can't pay her. So you're gonna have to pick it up now, and it's time to to step out and show some leadership here. So that's our weekly schedule. What we're going to cover. That's your task stream requirements in terms of Zooms and when everything is due. That's your discussion boards. I've got a tab for the peer review process. If you don't remember how to do peer review, if it'll load. I've got, again, a reminder of what the process is, the forms. I've set up some teams. I don't think I actually set up any teams. And let's see if I set up any teams. I think I've just put in there that you could do what you've been doing. Let's see what it got here.
That's what you had said, Dr. Lamb, and the team the only person that's not with us this semester should be Corey. He has taken a job out of education and has chosen to be a part of the program anymore.
No, I didn't. As you can see, I have the form here, but I talked to Dr. Stedman earlier. I said, no, I'm not going to make teams. I'm going to let you do your own teams and kind of figure that out on your own. Again, I can't raise you all your life. So here on the side, you can see for each week, everything that I'm going to cover. Now, I cover material when I come on every week. And so when I come on every week, you simply, if you miss it, when we get through tonight, the recording will go under Zoom session 1. And so I have reviewed all Blackboard functions, task stream functions. I'm going to go to that in just a minute. The required evidence artifacts, I'll get to that one. And the first thing I'm going to cover tonight is legal requirements for planning and instructional time. All right, so I need to move on to, let me see, I got a question. Let me see what's on chat here. Okay, are we good with the group of 3? Yes, you are. Yes, you are good with a group of 3 for your Zoom teams. All right, let me see if I can open up task stream here. It doesn't usually work if you preload it, so let's see if I can get it to go. I gotta move it out of the way. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to the author tab, and y'all are Fall 17 add-on licensure. So when you go into task stream, this is what it should look like from your view. You know that. All right, so we're at Mels 603. You have the OMA to do here. You can also put your skip here for 605. And the only thing else you have to do this semester is School of Ed dispositions. You can do those anytime. You don't have to do a competency analysis this semester. Now, as you can see, we have the CAP, skip, and SIOP in 605. Well, there's no way you're going to get to all of those. So we go ahead and do the OMA and the skip this semester. And then the first task of the CAP, and that'll give us our 9. So that means this summer, all you'll have to do is finish up the CAP and put the SIOP together. You ought to be able to do that in 6 weeks. That's all the time you have this summer. I believe I told you that in December. Now, the reason why we've accelerated you and pushed you to get the CAP done if you were not finishing in the summer, we wouldn't do that. But you've only got 6 weeks. Look at the screen. That's 6 fingers there. You've only got 6 weeks from the time that you start this summer to all ALL, all work is due, or you'll have to wait the fall to finish. You'll have to pay another $520 and do a $699 in the fall. If you don't, you get 4 weeks. Sometime around the first of July, before the 4th of July holiday, all work task stream related has to be completed, including competency folio. So make sure that you understand that we are accelerating you, not because we want to, but because if you want to finish this summer, that's the only way physically possible to do that, is that you knock out the OMA and the skip this semester and at least get started on the first task of the CAP. Otherwise, you won't finish. Now, to that end, I have removed competency analysis, so you won't have to do that this semester. Now, you will need to put your artifacts in your competency folio. Let me speak to that quickly. In the competency folio, you don't have to write War and Peace. You just have to give us an evidence that you did what you said that you did. And it can be a thing, it can be a picture, it can be a screenshot. If it takes you more than 2 hours to do a round of 21 competencies, then you're not tall enough to ride this ride. Now, you need to be doing something else. Competency folio is to drop things in there quickly and move on as evidence. Now, why do we have you do that? Because principal evaluation now is based on evidence artifacts. You have to write down what you've done when your assistant superintendent or area superintendent or the superintendent comes out to evaluate you as a principal. You have to have written evidence as what you did, but they have predetermined artifacts that you have to show them, things that would have been generated from the work that you actually did it. That's why we're getting you in this habit. And so basically what principals do now is they create a Google Drive or a document folder, and they put those artifacts, those proofs in it all the time, so that they'll have it when it comes evaluation time. That's what we're training you to do, because that's become commonplace for principals. If we looked at the principal evaluation manual for North and South Carolina, you would see that it's based on the evidence and artifacts. So that's why we do that. So that's what's due this semester. The OMA, your dispositions, you can do at any time. That's a self-disposition. Takes 2 minutes to do that. And then the skip and the first of the CAP. All right, your competency folio. If it'll open up for me here. No. You already have your competency folio. And it looks like this. And you know that communication, you have to put 3 in there. So you're due us around this semester, and one of them has to satisfy a digital learning competency. They're embedded in 18 of these have a digital learning in there, and so you upload it, a document, a picture, or whatever, and you move on. So you've got to do communication down through visionary this semester. Now, please remember, you do not have to do digital learning competencies. I have integrated them into the first 21. So that's just so that if somebody asks you what they are, you can click on that button and show them what they are. But there's nothing to add. There is nothing to add in there. I just put that in there so that you'd know what digital competencies are. And of course, you will upload your internship log here at the end of the semester for Dr. Stedman to check it to make sure that you've done your 80 hours. And let me speak to that quickly. If you did 240 last semester, well, bless your heart. You still got to do 80 this semester. It's 80 per semester. You have to be a full-time intern during the entire time of the program. You can't take a semester off. You put your log here and request comments, and he's able to see that. Please do not go to your DRF portfolio and submit your internship log. If you do that, I have to send it back. That's where you submit it once it's done. When you have all 3 semesters done of 80 hours, then we transfer it over and you submit it in your DRF portfolio. But for this semester, you want to put it right here and under internship logs and request comments from Dr. Stedman. So that's task stream this semester. It's very simple. You do your SOE dispositions. You can do those later tonight, and then you just start working on your evidence artifacts. You only have 4 peer reviews in terms of Zoom. You peer review the rest now. You don't have to peer review task 4 of the OMA or task 4 of the skip unless you want to. Remember, that's your competencies. You don't really have to peer review those unless your team just wants to peer review them, because that's just your reflection on the competencies. We don't require that. So you got You got four Zoom peer reviews, and then you should have seven written ones. You don't have to do a written or a Zoom review on task 4 in either the OMA or the skip, because those are reflection. All right, question coming in right quick. Do we start an entire new log or add on? I like for you to start a new log by semester. That way I can prove that you were a full-time intern all the time. Requirements from states now, North and South Carolina, Virginia as well, is that you're a full-time intern the entire time that you're in this program. So what that prevents people from doing is banking all their hours the first semester, and then the last year just working on their portfolio. That's not the design. They want you to be a full-time intern all the time. So just start a new log and keep on rolling. Questions about task stream? Good. All right, let me close it out. All right, we're back here. Again, the required evidence artifacts, all 4 of the OMA, all 4 of the skip, the first one of the task. I have it right here for you. 603 required evidence artifacts. They're right there. If you don't know what they are, I also have them in the scale handbook, but I have them right here and have all the prompts with them right there. If you need to see the scale handbook, which has all 6 of them in it, if you click on that one, you will find that I have you a scale handbook right there. And the original Mels candidate handbook that you came in under is there, and then there's the syllabus for the course this semester. So the question from D to everybody, yeah, that'd be fine, D. That'll be fine. Yeah, just have him sign your log before he leaves, and you're good to go. Yeah, that'll be fine. That's a good question. All right. Now, discussion board, you know to enter your things in discussion board from your weekly assignment. Let's look at assignment Dropbox. Assignment Dropbox, you put all your peer reviews in here, and you can see I've already calculated that you don't have to do a peer review on task 4, the OMA or the skip. You just drop your peer reviews right in here, and there you go. Got you a box to put them in, and when your tasks are complete and they're good to go, you can put them in there. Now, Dr. Stedman will have an intern shell. I'm going to give him a new shell just with his. Be patient. It won't populate until after drop add of this Blackboard. So after Monday, when drop add or whenever it is next week, he will have a new shell. When he comes on here with me next week, hopefully he will introduce his shell. It will be right next to your 603 class, and your shell, you'll drop your work in it for his review after it's been peer reviewed. Make sure you peer review your work first, and then it'll go to Dr. Stedman. He'll say, yeah, it's ready for task stream, and you'll drop it in the Dropbox for him for a grade. You'll drop it in Dropbox for me for a grade, and then when it's all put together, it'll go to task stream. So he gives you a grade, I give you a grade on finished work. But now I don't do comments on your work. That's him. I'm only interested in it when it's done. You put it in here. I just look to see that you did it, and I look to see that you did your peer reviews. Dr. Stedman's job as your coach is to work on quality control. My job as instructor is just to make sure that you hammer it out, kind of like last semester. We just switched roles. All right. So, in discussion board is where you go and post for peer review for your peers. For those of you who, if you don't have an address and you need one, if you'll click on week 1 candidate information, everybody should have submitted by now. And there's everybody's contact information is already there waiting on you, or it's being put in now to be waiting on you. So if you're missing an address, it should be under week 1 candidate contact information. But under discussion board as well. Come on now, don't leave me now. I've got places, there's where you drop in your work for peer review, and there it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Well, you don't have to do 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1. There you go. Remember, you don't have to peer review task 4 of the OMA or task 4 of the skip. And then there are your discussion board activities. Pretty straightforward layout. I have materials that I cover each week that are relevant to you. So I think you'll get a lot out of it, or at least I hope you will. All right, so shifting gears. Let's talk about the OMA. So I'm going to go to this. I'm just going to make it easy on myself here. I'm going to go to the scale handbook. All right. All right. All right, Mels 603, organizational management. 6 semesters, knowledge of legal requirements for planning and instructional time. That's why we start with that tonight. Knowledge of best scheduling practices, best practices in mentoring and coaching teachers. And there's a list of things that we're going to cover this semester. Now, one of the things that I'm careful to make sure students understand, the OMA is not about building a master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. It's about building a legal master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. One that will keep you out of jail and keep you from losing your job. You say, but Dale, how could that happen? Well, it's very simple. You're talking about federal, state, and local funds, and if you misspend them, if you assign a teacher out of field, or if you have classes overloaded and you do those kinds of things, or you don't have adequate supervision in your cafeteria, or if you don't have anybody supervising bus duty or car riders, then that's kind of the whole idea here. So the idea here behind the OMA is to build a legal master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. Everybody knows what a master schedule is. That's all your courses and teachers. All of you have been in the principal's conference room. They got a big whiteboard with grids and got yellow stickies all over it about who's going to be teaching what, where, and when. Well, there's got to be a process rather than eeny, meeny, miny, mo as to how those stickies make that board. Well, that's what I'm going to teach you this semester is that we start with federal law. Then we and the programs that are governed by federal law, like Title I or CTE or exceptional children or 504 or limited English proficiency or academically gifted. Those are all federal programs. They have federal dollars. That comes first. Then your state monies, state law, and that's usually on planning and instructional time. You know, how much planning time do teachers get in their daily schedule? How much instructional time for different classes? Those kinds of things. And then you have your local money and your local guidelines that go with it. And then you have best research practices like teaching reading before lunch in an elementary school. And then you have teacher input. And that's the hierarchy. That's the rationale for scheduling a school, period. There is no, but except in that, no, that's it. Federal law, state law, local board policy, best research practices, and teacher input. That's the hierarchy. That's the rationale every time. And the OMA is really about developing a process for scheduling a school. If you get a bad schedule, the worst thing you can do is start monkeying with it. It only makes it work. You just spread, you get the manure all over everybody. If you have a bad schedule, that's because you had a bad process. Bad schedules are the child of a bad process. What we want to teach you this semester is the right processes to get the right things. So that leads us to OMA Task 1. Can examine the school and its context, both internally and externally. In this analysis, organizational structures, management routines, and operations are included. So let's go and look at our first prompt. The candidate will research and develop an analysis of school context at the internal and external district, state, and federal levels to include demographic information regarding students and staff, and places this information within a state and national context. Basically, what we want there is all the stuff off your state report card or your SACS report. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just go find it. Copy and paste. Again, it's usually on your state report card, you know, the number of certified teachers, the number of students in your school, the demographics, all those kinds of things. They're found in either SACS or Advanced Ed, overview of your school, or on your state report card. That's where you start. In addition to that, you'll demonstrate an understanding of district, state, federal policy, law, and district mandate that regulate structures and rules, procedures in place for students and staff. All right, and so you should have a section on that, a critique of current structures and procedures in terms of equity and transparency. The candidate strongly encouraged to include you to do a little audit all of your exceptional learners. Again, your exceptional learners are not just exceptional children. EC is part of that. It's also your 504s, your English proficiency people, your CTE, not CTE, EC, LEP, AIG, and Title I. Title I is in there. That's your exceptional learners. Those are all federal programs. Special needs populations, that's what we're talking about. And then you will describe your school budgeting process and procedures. Within this description, participation of school personnel and how much your school improvement team is involved in the budget. Now, last semester we talked about your school improvement plan, and your budget has to support your school improvement plan. Your master schedule has to support your budget and your school improvement plan. Let me say that again. We're adding a third leg to the stool now. Last semester, we talked about how you come up with school improvement plan, and we have to check to make sure that you're dedicating the resources that you have through your budget to accomplishing that plan. Now we're adding a third leg. We have to make sure that your management structures and routines, i.e. your master schedule, supervision schedule, and duty roster, that they support your school improvement plan. You know, our focus is on reading. Well, did we reduce class sizes in reading? Did we get our best teachers teaching reading? I mean, that's your master schedule also has to support your school improvement plan. And so that's what we're talking about there. So that's your prompt for task 1. For task 2, now, this is my gift to you. You did the APTEL last semester. Does this look familiar to you? It's on the prompt for task 2 of the OMA. Basically, it's task 2, 3, and 4. Well, it's actually task 2 and 3 of the APTEL. I don't care if you just do a copy and paste. Again, this is my gift to you. You do not have to do a whole new section here. You can copy and paste, take out any language for the APTEL, task 2 and 3, maybe even part of task 1. Look at task 1, 2, and 3 of the APTEL, and I think it'll answer all of these bullets on this page. Take out APTEL language or designation and put OMA, and I think you're good to go. This should be about a 20-minute process, and you'll have task 2 done. Moving on, task 3. You develop analysis of existing school schedule to include but not follow. You assess these things. in the existing schedule, and then you'll propose a draft new schedule that justifies changes in order to meet federal law, state law, local board policy, best practice, or teacher input. You will propose a new schedule, a new process, or a new schedule that would better meet the needs of your school. And then, of course, in 4, you do reflection. Now, the time-consuming part, again, the OMA, the 2's already written because you did the APTEL last semester, so task 2's already. The time-consuming part is going to be putting all that information in task 1 where you gather all that information. But if you know where it is, I'm telling you, it's on your state report card and in your accreditation report, either SACS or Advanced Ed. If you know to go there and look for it, it won't take you that long to put your school in context, internally and externally. And so it shouldn't take you that long to, if you know where to look. 2's already written. 3, you got to assess your schedule and then come up with one that's a little bit better than the one that you got. And then you write then of course you write your 21, you write your competencies and you're golden there. Which competencies to write the first half will be fine with me. And then you'll write the second half when we do the skip. And we'll talk about the skip later this semester. So that's the OMA. It should be, once you lay your hands on all that information on the school context, it is pretty much a data dump. That'll be a few pages. But once you lay your hand on that, that goes pretty fast. You've already gotten task 2 written, task 3. Assessing the schedule will take you a while, and developing a new one, that's where you're going to get burned up on your time this semester, is assessing your master schedule and developing a new one. Don't get bogged down in that. That's a never-ending task. You can spend months on that. You need to pick up some time on task 2 so you can spend more time on task 3 if at all possible. So now let's talk about legal requirements for planning and instructional time. That's the first thing that it says that this course is about, and it's the first thing on my list tonight. So let me get out of this. Let me see if I can roll this thing down.
Dr. Lamb, can I say something, Dr. Lamb?
Sure.
Though I don't know how it is in South Carolina, but for those in North Carolina with Power School, the new master schedule actually has to be fully submitted by the spring of the year. So this is a good time to talk with your administrator about, your site administrator, about what they are doing. They have to start working on that now, because by the spring of the year, that has to be submitted. Now, they'll work on modifications with it during the summer, but it has to be submitted before school is out.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Stedman. All right. So I've made you a document here. Now there's one, you can make one similar for South Carolina. But you need to find out. So I've kind of put it together. This is what we're looking for, that understand, be able to know and use this kind of information. General Assembly of North Carolina states full-time should be provided duty-free instructional planning period and a duty-free lunch period, 5 hours each week. That has to be built into your master schedule. Now, duty-free time in North Carolina, a lot of times that 15 minutes before and after school when kids are coming and going, they'll count that as duty-free time. And so you actually only get like a half an hour during the day for lunch. You say, well, I only got a half an hour for lunch, so I didn't get my whole hour. I was supposed to get 5 hours a week. Well, they count the 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the afternoon as your duty-free time to get your 5 hours. They do that in North Carolina. I suspect they do it in South Carolina as well. Can you please repeat the resources we can use for prompt 1? Are we to use Power School as a resource for our master schedule? Yes. And the places you can find your internal and external content are 2. According to which accreditor that you're under, whether it's Advanced Ed or SACS, The school profile, which is the first thing in that document, will have all your internal and external information in it, and or your state report card will also have that information in it. So that's where you'll find the information that you need for OMA 1. What if we find that law is not being followed? Well, I guess you could go punch them in the nose if they're not following the law. No, I'm teaching you how it ought to be.
That's not all you need. What else are you going to need to do this?
And so.
Okay, what else?
Hello? And so, anyway, so one of the things that please remember, I want you to sit on the other side of the desk. I want you to change your lens to not the follower now, but the leader. What I'm trying to train you to do is be the person. You're going to find a lot of things that don't follow the law, but let me tell you this. Nobody can give you permission to break the law. Schools and principals break the law all the time, and it's all fun and games till somebody gets their eye put out, till you get caught. You can assume a situation in the school that's been going on forever, but when a problem occurs, it doesn't matter. Nobody can give you permission to break the law, and you saying, well, it's always been that way. Well, that doesn't work in court, I can tell you. And so, yes, I'm sure that schools stretch the law all the time, and principals are pretty smug about that until they get caught. But that's why they have to go home. Some of these things, when you get caught doing these things, that there is no recourse other than you lose your job. And so, what I'm trying to train you is to do the right thing, even if nobody's looking, because eventually it will come to light. I inherited a school one time where a teacher had been teaching out of field for 6 years and causing an overload in other classes. That was all well and good as long as the master schedule was on paper. But as soon as NCWIS came on, which was the precursor to Power School, came on, and you couldn't do those kinds of things, then all of a sudden it wasn't any good anymore, and that principal had to go home because he was intentionally defrauding. He was using a state-paid position to run a federal program. You don't do that. What had happened was when CTE no longer funded the photography teacher, he took a state-paid English teacher and continued to pay the photography teacher. You get caught doing things like that, you used to work there. And that's what happened. So that's how I got that job. If the principal needs teachers for emergency, then the law is overlooked. However, principals shall not unfairly burden the teacher's instructional planning period on an ongoing basis. All right, and then here are you got to have 185 days, 1,025 hours over 9 calendar months, 10 annual leave days, 10 teachers. Here are the kinds of things that I want you to research and find. In terms of these are things that put your schedule in context before you can start looking at a schedule of a school. Now remember, you're going to be looking at the schedule in task 3, but I started with this tonight because as you're collecting data for task 1, a lot of this stuff's going to come up. Go ahead and put it away. This is, again, a gift to you. You're going to need this down the road. So as you run across this kind of stuff, when you're putting all your data together for task 1, put this aside in a separate folder, and then when you start task 3, it will be there for you, and task 3 will go a lot faster. Again, task 2 is already written. Just change the language from ACTEL to OMA. Task 1 is about hoarding up all of your data, and then including this kind of data, so that you'll have it for task 1, and then when you get to task 3, it'll be there waiting on you, because task 3 is a booger. Task 3 is you have to assess based on this information, the current schedule that you've got, and build a whole new master schedule for your school based on following these guidelines and principles that I have on the screen in front of you. And if you have them already in hand, when you start task 3, it will go much faster. You should gather them up while you're gathering up all the information for task 1. Are we going to receive a copy of the document that it's already here? It's already under week 1. This document that I'm covering, everything that I cover in my class is already preloaded. It's right here under task. It's under week 1 right here. You will find, if you click on week 1, everything that I've covered tonight is right there waiting for you. And it will be that way every week. Everything that I cover for you is already uploaded for you. All right. So that's the OMA. You're going to go on a great scavenger hunt for the next week or so, gathering all this information. Get all your planning and instructional stuff as well while you're out gathering. Find out where all that stuff is. Gather all of it too, so that you can write 1 and 3. 2's already done. You write your competencies. I mean, the OMA you should breeze right through this if you do a good job data collecting the next week or so, getting all that stuff together. And then we'll talk about the skip later on. But as you get into this, next week and the following week, we'll talk more specifically about task 1 as you have relevant questions after you've started gathering up your data. And you have relevant questions for me, I'll be able to answer those. If I go over them now, they won't make much sense to you until you go gather your data. Again, another question here. The next, there won't be any school for weeks. It doesn't seem that way. And see, that's another thing. I mean, we get behind because of bad weather in the spring, and then that leads right into a short session of 6 weeks in the summer. So I've given you all the tips and shortcuts that I can. Gather all your data for 1 and 3 at the same time. 2's already written. Roll through your competencies. Don't have to write War and Peace on them. Write 1 paragraph. Drop your proofs into your competency folio. Work smarter, not harder. Be quick. Quick is good. Quick is good. All right. Another question coming in. Discussion board items are due what day? Again, all grown people here, that's up to you. I don't do weekly turn-ins. I don't do weekly. I'll tell you what you're supposed to do every week. If you don't do it this week and you do it next week, I don't care. It's just got to be done by the end of the semester. We're not going to do weekly turn-ins. Your superintendent, when you're principal, doesn't do weekly turn-ins. When I was principal and you were my AP, I didn't do weekly turn-ins. I gave you your task to do. Now go do it. If there's a due date, I'll tell you. If there's not, it's due by this time. But I'm not going to check on you every week. But if you get behind, it's hard to get caught up. I've got it paced so you got 4 hours of work to do every week. If you take a week off, you got 8 hours to do next week then. If you do 8 this week, then you can take next week off. But we're not going to do Sunday nights. I don't put any time limits on when you do turn-ins. Again, you need to start being, think from the other side of the desk. You need to be a leader now. You need to self-monitor rather than have Dr. Stedman have to monitor you all the time. You need to be self. We do that in 601, and I'm not being derogatory. We do it because you need it in 601. I told you in December. It's that 603. You got to pick up the pace. You got to pick up your feet and run. And we don't have time to pace you and send you reminder notices and those things. We have it all laid out. It's there for you whenever you want to go get it. I'll come online every week and answer any questions you have and cover my materials. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what we do. Looking at next week, another question. OMA due, okay. OMA due what day? Let's see. If we go back and look at the evidence artifact schedule, let me do that. New share. Let me go back and look at evidence artifact. Right here, it tells you what's due and when. There's your dates and times on that one. I already got it all mapped out for you. It's almost like I do this for a living. So there it is. Let me do a resume share here. New share and go back to my desktop. All right, a little precursor of next week. All right, Zoom session 2 next week. What we're going to cover next week? I bet we're going to look at crisis box. There it is. We're going to look at North Carolina general statutes, and I'll also be looking at South Carolina general statutes next week as well. North Carolina 115C are the statutes for North Carolina public schools, the laws that go along with them. There's 545 of them. Let me say that again. There are 545 general statutes about public education in the state of North Carolina. There's nearly that many in South Carolina. I only have the North Carolina ones memorized. The South Carolina ones I'm familiar with. You'll need to memorize them as well. Either that or carry the law book around with you, which is not a bad thing. So we'll start next week. We'll cover the general statutes that govern. Specifically, we'll be looking at 288 rules and duties and responsibilities of the school principal. We'll be looking at those next week. We'll be looking at our crisis box emergency plans, which are most relevant in schools today, and I'll introduce the facilities assessment inventory that I developed that goes along with the required twice monthly assessment of your facilities to make sure you don't have any endangerments or fire hazards, because you're going to have to do that. But those are the things we're going to look at next week. And then you'll have don't forget to look at your discussion board about what activity. And if you're confused about what you're supposed to do every week, very simply, get this out of the way. Make sure that you check the weekly schedule. Come on, you can do it. Check your weekly schedule. So next week, because we're doing crisis plans and facilities walkthrough, I had you locate a copy of your school emergency plans and read the school law and book to understand why I'm having you find these things. And you have to do a little quick assessment of your school plan, emergency plans. And then as you can see, each week, the materials that I have support your activities that week and kind of tell you why I'm having you do what you do. There's a rhyme and a reason. Reason I have you do is assessment inventory because under NC 115C 288, it says that twice a month you'll conduct a safety inspection. Now, you say, well, I'll just send the AP out with the custodian. They'll walk around the building. What happens if you have a fire and somebody says that a hallway was blocked? Do you have any proof that you've been doing regular safety checks? You better have a document. You better have some sort of documentation that shows that you have systematically checked your school on a regular basis and that this has not been an ongoing problem. Otherwise, you'll get fried. Pardon the metaphor, you'll get fried as well. And so that's why I have you do that. Everything that I come on and talk to you about every week, and I have an activity, goes back to a law. And the things that are most likely to cause you grief or pain or injury as a school administrator. There's 1,000 other things, but I picked the ones that are most relevant to everyday life as a building-based administrator, and more specifically, a brand new AP, which you hopefully will be before long. The things that will be most near and dear your heart once you get started in this business. That's what I'm doing with you every week. It's a practical course. This is, again, you have some reading to do, but even the books, they're not theoretical. These are practical application of school law and finance. One more question here. All right. Questions about everything's on the weekly schedule or the weekly evidence artifact schedule. I've separated them so that you can print these out and tack them up on your wall so you'll know what to do every week. Again, monitor yourself and your turn-in times and dates. And so, does everybody see everybody on the screen? Isn't that neat? I love this course. It's my favorite. I'm the only legally trained one in the department, so it kind of falls to me. But I don't mind. I love this course. And I think it prepares you singularly to be a good assistant principal. Now, the great part comes on the instructional side. This will prepare you to be a really good operational person. Now, understanding in our business, there are two types of people. There are smart people like Dr. Stedman who are instructional or curriculum people. I happen to be married to one of those for the last 33 years. But then you have people on the other side of the aisle, and that's what we call it, who are operations people. I happen to be one of those. So what I'm training you to be is, since you got such a good grounding in curriculum last semester, this semester I'm working with you on operations. We'll talk about the master schedule and how to plan for instruction, but we talked about instruction and about those kinds of things last semester. This semester is about organizational management. It's about operations. It's about keeping you safe and the people that you work with safe, both faculty and students, about keeping them safe. Now, kind of the last thing in my diatribe tonight is I'm not telling you that if you adhere to everything that I tell you to do, that nothing bad will ever happen in your school. I can't make that promise, and you know that in this day and time. But what I can tell you, if you'll adhere to the things that we teach you in this course, when you get sued, you won't lose. Because bad things will happen and people will sue you. And the whole point is to survive that and continue on in your career. And so that's my goal this semester, is that each of you, when you get that new AP job, that you won't make some dumb decision in the first month or two that ends your career at that level. And that's very likely to happen, unfortunately, in these days and times. Questions that you have for me or Dr. Stedman? Next week, hopefully, we will have your intern shell populated with him. You won't need it for 2 more weeks anyway. We'll populate it sometime in the next week where you can, once you get things peer reviewed, you can pop it in his shell and he'll give you the turnaround on it very quickly and tell you if it's good, bad, or indifferent, same as I did last semester. And then once it's good, you'll pop it in mine and move on to the next one. And when you get them all ready, you know you drop them in task stream. And again, I've got that schedule for you. If you don't know when your due dates are on task stream, I've made you a separate schedule for task stream. You'll conduct your own scheduling in terms of your peer reviews. Remember, you only have 4 this semester. Task 1 and 2 of the OMA, task 1 of the SKIP, task 1 of the CAP. You have 4 peer reviews. You have 7 written reviews. The first 3 of each the OMA and the SKIP, and the first one of the CAP. It's the only ones you have to do the written reviews on. So you do 7 written, 4 video. You do your weekly assignments, interviewing people and finding things on your campus, kind of like a scavenger hunt. And you should be good to go. I'll come on every week and talk about practical things. The real world on the operate. Come over to the dark side with us on the operations side. You'll like it. All right, I see my time is up. I made it with 30 seconds to spare.
Okay.
That. It's amazing. All right. Anything for the good of the group? Dr. Stedman, you want to close us out?
No, I'll just join in next week until and just kind of, I'm going to join in every week and just kind of see where they are with things. And then, I mean, they know what my role is because it's the same role you had last time. And they should know that if they send me something that I'm going to provide the feedback that they need. So.
All right. Tracy's has a good closing. Everybody stay safe and warm. We'll see you all next week.
Okay. Good night, y'all.
Good night.